Hey, welcome once again to Bleeding Edge Interviews. Time to get to know the stars of the world of progressive rock just a little bit better. I'm your host, Super Dave. Thank you once again for joining me. I really do appreciate your time. So, you know what? If you're familiar at all with modern progressive rock and metal, then Jordan Rudess is someone who really needs no introduction, I'd say. He's the keyboardist for Dream Theater of the past quarter century. He's the maestro. He's the wizard. He's been crowned the greatest keyboardist of all time by Music Radar magazine. He's got a new album coming out September 6th, and it's called Permission to Fly. What more needs to be said? Here's me talking with the inimitable Jordan Rudess. Hello, Jordan. Good morning.
Hey, apologies for being late. I got completely caught up in the fact that we're just releasing this video at 10 a.m. this morning. So I was kind of like chatting with the people who were just watching it. I apologize. How's it going?
No worries. It's going well. It's good to see you again, sir.
Good. Awesome. Nice to see you too. What's
Yeah.
the latest?
What's that?
What's the latest?
Well, there's this guy, Jordan Rudess, that I understand is going to have a new album out September 6th. Called
I
Fly.
don't know him. Sorry, I don't know him.
Oh, I'll tell you all about him a little bit. He's a pretty cool dude.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, somebody's got to inform me what's going on with this guy.
So which video were you just putting out?
Oh, so we just literally released Shadow of the Moon at 10 a.m. on YouTube. It just premiered.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's very awesome. I'll have to check that out, look that up, and see how it's going.
Yeah, there you go. Cool, man.
So when it comes to this stuff, and it's a fascinating thing for me, the whole musical and creative process, because I know I'm not capable of it. I have not ever had that kind of inclination in my mind. But then I wonder about folks like yourself who have been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And you've put out numerous solo albums and albums of Dream Theater, and you've collaborated with other artists. And then I begin to wonder, like, what is it like after that time to still have that creative edge and still come up with new ideas and new inspiration? Like, how do you keep pulling that out?
That's a great question, and I totally understand where that is coming from, because in many ways the musical thing seems very mysterious to a lot of people. And the whole creation like how do you create a song? How does it happen? Like, just tell me. But I think my main feeling answer to that question is, for me, like, my music has always been the way that I communicate the most easily, if you will. It's been like, I go to my music when I have something really to say that I can't say in words. And like, honestly, for me to sit and just play the piano or my synthesizer or whatever, and just to create music is as easy or easier than coming up with whatever words are coming out of my mouth right now. My music to hand connection is definitely more established than my like, verbal communication to my mouth. And that's the way kind of like we work. Our brains send us signals, and it comes out in words, or it comes out in my fingers moving on this thing that makes sound. So, I have my own perspective. Obviously, my profession is a musician, not a scientist, or, but what I feel is that, I've been working my whole life to kind of like take my musical thoughts and make them come out of my hands, come out of me in different ways, mostly through my fingers. And that ability is, just kind of like what I've developed and what I do. So that's kind of how it happens. I mean, I have no shortage of musical ideas. I might be more inspired at some points than another point, and be able to create on the different levels during different parts of the day.
Yeah.
But the same would be true for any kind of output, whether it's verbal or otherwise.
Right. Yeah. I imagine in some cases that there's people that have so much creative output that I almost imagine them getting up, and every morning they wake up and it's almost one of the first things, they had an idea that floated in and they went, you know what, I've got to go put this down. I've got to write this down, or I've got to play it out, see where it goes. Versus where I'll read things where it seems like bands put some of that aside for a bit, and then, hey, it's time to make an album. and we all get together and we start at that point versus having this all these ideas that they've been saving up for a while. Where do you think you fall in? It sounds like it's a daily thing. It comes out.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why, for me, like improvisation is a major part of my life. That's why, like, I'll just like put my camera down, my iPhone or whatever, down on my piano and go on Instagram and hit the share, the live button, and I'll just play,
Yeah,
because I kind of feel like it's a chance for me to just kind of express myself. And in this case, it's not just me alone. I'll put when I turn on Instagram Live, all of a sudden I've got this international conference of people that I'm kind of like vibing with and improvising for, and that's a really nice thing. But the
yeah,
improvisation itself is really important to me because it allows me to kind of output a lot of what I'm feeling. Because
yeah.
otherwise, I would just be very stuck because this
Yes,
is the way that some people in their lives they're great communicators and they get everything out with their words and can do that. That's not necessarily me. I need to do that through music. So the fact that so there's a bunch of sides to that actually, which is interesting because one is like the formality, if you will, of creating an album like Permission to Fly or working with Dream Theater and creating that album, which is you know you're composing, you're putting ideas together, you're structuring, you're shaping, and all of that, of course, is extremely valid.
yeah,
Uh, but the other part that's important to me is just this flow of music that comes out, and like as far as the flow is related to the actual album creation. What I'll do is if I'm at the piano and I am feeling something and I play something and I think, oh, that's nice, I'll put on my camera, I'll capture it, and then later on I can go back to it and say, this kind of came out of me as an emotion, and I'll look at it and go, oh, that's cool. Matter of fact, for Permission to Fly, the way that the album came together was that I had a whole bunch of these like small clips, just like playing a phrase or a few chords, and put them all in a folder because I knew I was going to do an album, and I started to get kind of inspired about it, and would just sit and not compose, but just let some ideas flow. And
mhm,
then my daughter Ari, who actually wrote all the words, the lyrics for the album, she and I went through all those clips. I had about like 40 different clips, and I said, let's go through these and find the ones that are the kind of like hit us the best. What are the ones that really seem like this could really be a song? And so we did that, and then we limited it down to whatever it was, like 8 things. They were like, these are great. Matter of fact, the song that we just released today, "Shadow of the Moon," that chorus that's in that song, which you'll hear, I guess, at some point soon,
yeah,
is something I just laid down. It came to me in a moment. I just played it. I went, okay, that's good. And
nice.
then when I went to the studio to work on the album, I was like, I'm going to use that chorus, and I built the rest of the song around it.
Very nice. When you go into these types of projects, how intentional is it on your part to make them stand out as different from your other projects, particularly Dream Theater? Because I know a lot of artists when they go out and they do their solo thing, they got some other itch they want to scratch or something like that that's outside of their
Yeah.
normal venue. So I'm curious, do you let the inspiration flow and whatever comes out is what comes out, or do you at some point in time go, yeah, that sounds a little too much like Dream Theater, I need to save that for something else?
I don't really concern myself so much in the act of like trying not to make it sound a certain way or to
Mhm.
make it trying not to sound like Dream Theater. The reality of the musical personal situation is that my collection of influences, all the things that I am aware of that I've kind of put together stylistically in my brain, is mine. And when I go into a writing session with Dream Theater, I'm offering that as part of the whole. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of other, as everybody knows, there's a lot of other very strong influences. And what comes out is this kind of like collaboration between all the different minds. But there's enough other stuff happening in my brain, enough other kinds of emotions and values and musical considerations that when I go in, I feel like there's a lot for me to say personally.
sure.
My own, and I love to bring out kind of like my own blend. which people know I'm coming from, a very serious classical music background. And then somewhere along the line, I discovered Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis and Yes and Pink Floyd and Gentle Giant. I stirred that up with some electronic synthesizer crazy stuff, and it became a little bit of soup with some jazz chords that I thought were cool along the way. And out you have, the Jordan Rudess model, if you will, of music.
Right.
And so when I go into the studio, that's what comes out. I mean,
Yeah.
I could focus, I could take all the stuff that I'm made of and kind of focus it in a certain direction. Like some albums I'll do are just piano, and my piano style can be very different than my progressive rock style. So I have these different things that I like to do, even within my own kind of musical world. So yeah. It is really important for me to do these solo albums because I live and breathe music, and I have so much that I feel like I want to say, and so these are great, for me to do.
Yeah. What I find, I think, most interesting with this album in some ways is the collaborations involved in it. Like you mentioned, Ari helping you with the lyrics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I have adult kids myself, so I'm curious how that went. What inspired you to do it that way at this point in time, and how easy was it to do the father-daughter collaboration?
Yeah. So yeah, Ari wrote all the lyrics for the album. So what happened was that I knew that I wanted to have an album that was not only the, progressive kind of wild side of what I do, kind of like maybe like the Wired for Madness album that
Mm.
I did, which was, I poured my heart and soul into that too. But I feel like maybe what happened with that one, it was just kind of like a almost like this intense like release of just madness. That's why I think I called it that.
Yeah.
For this one, I wanted to find a balance between music that was a little bit easier to absorb, and also all the journey progressive kind of stuff that I do. And I wanted to feel like it was kind of like a band. So, it was important to get a singer who I felt was symbiotic with my musical energy output. And I found Joe Payne, who was amazing, and a drummer that could really, do the right thing on drums, Darby Todd and Steve Dadayan playing guitar. But for the words for the album, I've written lyrics before in my solo world, certainly, and I like writing lyrics, but I care mostly about the way the lyrics sound, and that they're spacey and
Yeah.
trippy and cool and on that level. But I wanted this to be. I realized that there are people out there, a lot of them, who when they listen to music, it's not all about the music as it pretty much is for me. They want to know what the lyrics are, what they mean. They're very into that, and I respect that. So, in wanting to deliver a really full kind of like album experience, I thought, well, I have someone who can handle writing some really deeper kind of like lyrics right in house. Somebody who's basically been in progressive music rock training, ever since she was born.
Yeah.
I mean, I was teaching her how to like, feel 7/8 time on the way to kindergarten. I mean, it's just she's basically been, in my world since the beginning,
Yeah.
and so her talent, and life focus has been on language, being someone who speaks Italian and French and has a degree in English. So I was like, "Hey, do you want to do the lyrics?" Because she was like, "Yes." She took it on and just did a great job. And realized that my one of the things I really care about, which she was also very sensitive to, was how do the words like flow with the music? What are the vowels at the particular pitches
Mm.
and positions in the phrase, and how does that make you feel? And besides all the meaning. So I wasn't so concerned about the meaning. She was, because that was her job. I just wanted to make sure everything really flowed and matched the musical phrasing. So yeah, I think she did a fantastic job. Very
Yeah.
proud that she did it, and I would definitely consider taking this band that created this album and doing it again like this, because it was a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a very, really, very, very cool experience, and
Yeah,
what a great
totally.
opportunity to work with, one of your kids, with your daughter.
Yeah,
I don't
and
blame you for doing it. It sounds
yeah.
like she certainly
Since
was qualified for the position.
Oh, totally. And the other thing that really, really helped is having somebody to bounce all the ideas that I had off of. Like, what do you
Mm,
think of this? Let's look at this together. So from that point of view, kind of like a co-producer,
yeah.
of the whole thing.
And speaking of Joe, wow, what a find. I immediately, upon hearing the first couple of singles and then later listening to the advanced copy of the album, I thought he was immediately familiar. At least the sound of his voice to me was familiar. And I thought, now who is that? I got to find out who was singing on this. And I looked it
Yeah.
up and went, I don't know him. For half a second, I saw Joe Payne and thought John Payne, the front man for Asia in
Oh,
the
yeah,
90s.
yeah.
And
Right,
I went,
right.
really? And I'm like, no, no, no. And then I looked out and I thought, okay, wow, he's got an amazing range and tone and the phrasing. You really you nailed it with that choice.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I mean, like, I spent a lot of time thinking about who could sing on this album. And of course, I have a lot of friends and, people who I considered. But again, I wanted to find somebody who I felt like their musical output in their own way kind of matched my musical energy. And when I heard Joe sing and when I met him, I was like, this is a beautiful guy with a beautiful voice. And wow, and he wants to do it. And let's go. Actually, I found out about him through Roy at Prog Report. He told me about him, and then Joe and I spoke, and we talked about maybe my doing something on his album, but that was already done. And I asked him if he wanted to. After I heard him sing and met him, I was like, "Hey, you want to sing on my album?" So, that just worked out beautifully. So gifted. Not only a great singer, but also a really good musician. Sent me the tracks beautifully recorded. My engineer was just like Jimmy T, just said, "Hey, these were delivered beautifully, and they're great."
Yeah.
So, and Joe also created some very nice harmony kind of things, little vocal arrangements in certain parts, like in this song that was just released today, "Shadow of the Moon." Just the way that he stacked all the harmonies and did that, he was really like a contributing member to this album.
Yeah, it does sound very much for a solo project, so to speak. It's been really a collaborative effort, which you said at the beginning that you wanted this to be more of a band feel than the work of just an individual. And it sounds like you've found these layers to put on there, and all this additional collaboration has really turned out a nice product.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, it's so rewarding to hear the feedback because, these things are like getting it all together, if you will, to be able to produce an album like this is intense, man. It's like you have to, first of all, come up with what you want to do and all the business around kind of like how's it going to be released if you want to think about that beforehand. I mean, in my life, there's so many things going on that I kind of wanted to have it, like to understand what the parameters of this were going to be, who's going to release it, when could it come out, when am I going to do it, how am I going to do it, what am I going to do, all these things before I even take a step into the studio to go, okay, like I'm going to figure out where these key commands are again on my, Logic software and actually make this happen. Really intense. And
Yeah,
then even after that, when I deliver the stuff and I send it like to Jimmy T to mix it, and then it's all a matter of, okay, well now I've got to send, I've got to work with all the other musicians and then all the promotion, and it's, there's a lot of steps along the way that
yeah, really.
it's definitely to produce music and to make albums. The skill set is a lot deeper than just being able to play the music.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
And speaking of collaborations, I think the most maybe interesting quote unquote collaboration on the album is the introduction of AI into the process for you. I think it's what Moises AI, is that pronounce? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Moises, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Talk about that a
totally.
little bit because I've heard, pardon me, heard so many musicians talking about like AI is going to take our job.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
that's
here,
a whole nother conversation, which we can have at a later point.
yeah,
But
right.
Moises is this amazing application that I'm an ambassador for Moises, and the reason I am is because I think they're doing great, great stuff, especially in the area of
Yeah.
education for musicians. What basically it started out as, now it does a whole lot more, is this application that would track separate. thing. So like it's almost like you would have access to the individual tracks of a piece of music. Like,
Yeah.
today you could download Moises and take a Dream Theater song and hear, the guitar by itself, or you could listen to it instrumentally, or you could just listen to the voice. So it recognizes the different parts amazingly out of like a stereo audio file, or for that matter, video, and will separate it really well. And you have full control of the volume or muting it. And then you could slow it down, which is incredibly helpful to be able to learn something, or change the pitch if you want to check something out in a different key. Recently, they added something called sections, which automatically through AI recognizes like the verse chorus, and then you can be looping the verse, the chorus. You can loop from this verse to the bridge. All these amazing tools, including showing you very accurately what chord is happening at every moment on a click. So it's an incredible tool, and we decided to release the very first song, Embers, through that technology,
Yeah.
as this kind of a really cool way to do it, and with a contest where people were able to take out a part and maybe they add their own part, or they could replay the drums, or they would, play the guitar or the keyboard, or do all, whatever the hell they wanted. So yeah, Moises is great, and it keeps on improving every day, and people can definitely hear that Ember song through that technology as well.
Wow, that is amazing. So
Yeah, it's pretty
that's
cool.
it tempted me to check it out somewhere and see what I can do to mangle somebody else's music somewhere along
Yeah, you can down. It's a
play
free
around.
download. It's a free download. Actually,
Nice.
you have some limited capabilities with the free version, but you could have some fun with it, and then people can decide after that if they want to go for the full thing.
It's really cool. So I know your time is limited, so I know you're gonna have to run soon. But I'm curious. I'm trying to think, and I look back. Google was no help. I don't recall that I've ever seen you tour with your solo music, or heard of it. And I'm curious, with everything you've got going on, I imagine that's something that's very difficult to fit in. But when you've got this kind of band concept going on, is there a temptation there to try to find a way to do that?
There really is. I mean, I've done some touring just on my own, like this as a pianist.
Yeah.
I did about a year of touring just when Dream Theater was off a couple of years ago, and had some, great shows in Europe and the US and in Asia. And so I enjoy that. Honestly, in my world, in the world we live in, it's a lot more possible for me to make something happen touring wise if it's just me. Because I can do that as a pianist. I can go and play a concert.
Sure.
It's, which is cool. But there's definitely an interest in doing it with the band. And right now I'm getting ready to do this immense Dream Theater tour.
Mm.
We've got our new album coming out after the new year, and so what's going to have to happen is, as I mentioned, I'd love to take this group that I assembled for this album and bring it into another project. I mean, nothing is decided; we're not there yet,
Yeah.
but it's definitely of interest to me. And if I can do that, and we have another album with this combination, then all of a sudden it sets it up for, wow, there's a nice little catalog there of stuff, and then it's more possible. So
Yeah.
I would say that it's not going to happen in this round just because of obvious reasons given
Sure.
my
Sure.
life, but it could happen the next round.
Then you give hope to all of us that are enjoying the album or will be enjoying the album. I got the advanced copy. Obviously, it's not out
All
for a
right.
while, but it
Yeah.
gives us hope that we'll get to see this because, like I said, you guys have put together something really very cool, and it's I think all these little elements blended together very nicely.
So happy to hear that good report, and glad you've been enjoying the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for the support as well. I appreciate that.
Certainly, absolutely. So, permission to fly, I speak for a living. September 6th. Let's try it again, Dave. And we'll all look forward to that. And hey, wish you the best with this little Dream Theater side project thing you got going on. I hope that
Oh
turns
yeah,
out to be something pretty big. And with the
yeah,
tour, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the U.S. I hope really, really soon.
awesome. Yeah, the Dream Theater thing is going very, very well. We're super excited about it. I think the fans are going to freak out. It's great.
Well, we're already freaking out. Portnoy's back in the fold, so that's what
Yeah, there you go. All
that's
right,
what we've been
take care,
hoping
Jay.
for. Thank
Thanks
you,
so
Jordan.
much.
Take care and
See
have
you,
a good
man.
day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
So, not only a virtuoso keyboardist, but a really cool dude to talk to as well, to be perfectly honest. Jordan, I want to thank you once again, sir, for taking the time to talk with me. I really enjoyed it. It went by way too fast for me. Hope to get to do it again with you someday. Meanwhile, I want to wish you the best, you and the rest of the guys in your band now, the best with the new album. I hope it does really well for you. And I want to wish you and the guys in Dream Theater all the best with the new album as well and the tour. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys out on the road, hopefully really soon in this area. So hope it all goes well for everybody, travel safe and everything like that. Meanwhile, those of you watching and listening, I do want to thank you for joining me again. I appreciate your time. If you're a first-time viewer, thank you for coming along and checking it out. Anybody could throw me a like and subscribe. That would be really awesome. And hey, take a few moments, take a look at the description. You can find my social media links and the link to my Live 365 station, The Expanse, featuring nothing but the best in progressive rock and metal, especially the Brain Salad Sunday, where, as you would guess, every Sunday it's nothing but 60s and 70s classic progressive rock. Meanwhile, that's all I have for you right now. Once again, I encourage you, never fear to deviate from the norm. Keep it proggy. And this is Super Dave, signing off.